guys, it's Bella and welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to another unsolved mystery video. It has been a hot minute since I've uploaded one of these, and honestly, like, I just needed some time off to like gather myself and gather some information on like a few different cases, get the ball rolling on a few different ones. So I actually had like information and like cases ready so that I didn't get stressed out, because one of these videos is so much effort. It's like so much research. It's like uploading an assignment basically every single week, which, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love doing these. They're my favorite. I love researching, which is kind of the problem, is like I love researching so much that I get carried away with it and I want to keep researching, but I'm like, shit, I can't, because I need to have this up by Monday, because if I don't, then people are gonna get mad at me, because every time I upload one of these, even an hour late, I have people on my back on all social medias. I've literally had people threaten to start a petition to get my channel shut down because I didn't upload a Mystery Monday, which is insane to me. And I've just had the most stressful day today as well, honestly. First, my dongle breaks. I have one of those new dumb ass laptops that don't take anything except USB-C. So my dongle broke. I was meant to upload a video this morning, but I couldn't because I couldn't get all of the clips onto my laptop. Then my laptop breaks, and then my camera broke. So I'm now filming on my vlogging camera, and it's been a ride. So anyway, with that being said, let's just go ahead and get into today's case. We're going to be talking about the death of Kris Kremers and Lisanne Froon. So Kris and Lisanne were both Dutch students. They decided to take a 6-week trip in Panama, which, if you guys don't know where Panama is, I do because of Prison Break. It is in Central America. They saved up for like 6 months for this trip, and they decided to go there for a few reasons. The first being they wanted to learn Spanish. I don't know if they already knew some Spanish and wanted to just like touch up their Spanish and like get better at it and like really fully learn it, or if they went there just to learn it for the first time. They also wanted to go there to volunteer with children there, and they went there kind of as a reward because Lisanne had just graduated, and she graduated with a degree in applied sciences, so it was kind of like a celebration of that as well. So their trip began on the 15th of March in 2014, and for the first 2 weeks of the 6-week trip they were kind of just hanging out, doing their own thing, exploring the city themselves, and I guess that was kind of like their celebration time, their like reward time for graduating. And then after that 2 weeks they went to Boquete, I believe it's pronounced, which is where they stayed with a host family and where they were going to be staying for the next 4 weeks. On the 1st of April, the girls decided to go for a hike. They left their host family's house at like 11 a.m. and this is like weird in itself, the fact that they decided to go on this hike, because the next day on April 2nd they'd actually planned to meet up with their tour guide named Feliciano so that he could take them on a hike at 8 a.m. So it's like weird that they decided to go by themselves the day before when they literally already had it planned to go the next day with someone who's more experienced and someone who knows the area and speaks the language a bit better. So I don't know, it's kind of like strange from start to finish, the whole story. Anyway, on the 1st, when they did decide to go on their hike, they were seen having lunch with 2 Dutch guys, which I'm pretty sure they'd hung out with these guys before and they had like partied with them. They have photos with them and stuff, like partying, and they had gone to like a beach together or something and have photos with starfish. Like, they were hanging out, they knew each other, and this is kind of like not really that relevant to the story. It depends how you want to take it, whether you want to take it and kind of make a theory with it, or if you just think it has nothing to do with it. I just thought I would include it anyway. Besides the point, they decided to go on their hike after they had lunch, and they went to a clouded forest, which is basically like a rainforest or like a jungle, and they went to the Baru volcano, I believe it is pronounced, which wasn't too far from where they were staying with their host family. They took Blue with them, and Blue was the host family's dog. The weird thing is Blue returned that night, on the same night on the 1st of April, but the 2 girls didn't return with him, which is weird, right? Like, that would worry you if you were the host family, and it did worry them, because imagine if you had like 2 people staying with you and they took your dog for a hike and then your dog came back and they didn't come back with the dog that they took with them. Like, it would just be alarming. So they messaged or called Lisanne's mum and asked her if they had heard from Lisanne, and her mum ended up messaging her, but she didn't have a reply. And while they were worried, they couldn't really do anything about it. They didn't go to the police or report them missing or anything, because they did go for a hike, so it's possible that they were still out there and sent the dog home, or whatever it may be. They may not have had reception. So yeah, they were worried, but they didn't do anything, which is fair enough. There's a whole like reason of, like, they're not their parents, they can't do anything and be like they have to be home tonight, you know what I mean? So they were obviously giving them a little bit of time, and then the next day, April 2nd, 8 a.m, when they were meant to meet up with their tour guide Feliciano, they didn't show up. So he was a bit worried, and he went to the host family and saw that all of their stuff was there, aside from the things that they had taken with them, like their cell phones weren't at the host family's house, for example. And he was like, what the hell? So then he also talked to Lisanne and was like, do you know where your daughter is? And she just responded and said, she's in Panama. And he was like, well, shit, we don't know where in Panama she is. Like, she's meant to be with us right now. After that, they ended up going to the police at about 7:30 p.m. They reported the girls missing, and then at 8 a.m. the next day on April 3rd, there was like a small search. It wasn't really anything big. It was a bit of an aerial search to kind of search over the jungle, and then a few locals and indigenous people went through the forest and tried to have a look for them, but nobody found them or anything to do with them. There was no signs of the girls. There was literally nothing. On the 6th of April, both girls' families flew out, as well as police, detectives, Dutch special units, and sniffer dogs to have a more intense search for these girls. They searched for 10 days and they didn't find anything. They didn't find scratchings on the rock, they didn't find markings, they didn't find anything. No leads, no pieces of information. They didn't find the girls, no left behind water bottles, like literally nothing at all. It was like they weren't there. It wasn't until 10 weeks later, on June 14th, 2014, that an indigenous couple found Lisanne's blue backpack, and it was a long way from where they went for their hike, but it was still along the Continental Divide, which was in the same area that they were doing their hike. It was like along it, but very, very far away from where they were. The woman who found it turned it into police. She said that she found it while she was tending her rice paddy near the riverbank in Alto Romero, and said it definitely hadn't been there the day before. The backpack still had like all of their belongings in it. It had $83 worth of cash. It had Lisanne's passport. It had both of their phones in it. It had Lisanne's camera, both of their bikinis, a pair of sunglasses, and a water bottle, and they were all in really, really good conditions. Like, they hadn't, it looked like they hadn't been touched, despite the humidity, the heat, and the rainfall that they had at that time. It looked untouched, which is crazy considering it had been 10 weeks in this weather. So investigators took a look at the contents of their phones, and they found that the girls had tried multiple times over multiple days to contact emergency services. They were calling 112, which is like the emergency number over there, as well as 911, which I think Panama as a whole uses for their emergency number. The first call was actually made only a few hours after they left for the hike, and then it went on for several days. It seems like none of the calls went through. There was one call that went through, and they got through for just over a second before it cut out, but there was no service in the area, so it seems like it didn't get through for that reason. I've never been in a situation like that personally, but I thought that phones were able to call emergency service numbers without having any reception. I'm not sure how that works. I mean, clearly it didn't work in this situation, so I don't know. I don't know. I've never been in a situation like that. Lisanne's phone, her Samsung, died on April 5th at 5 p.m. And Kris's phone, she had an iPhone. She didn't make any calls after this, but she did occasionally turn the phone off. Well, we don't know if she did, but the phone was turned off and on quite a few times after this, probably looking to see if they had reception to be able to call someone or something like that. On the 6th of April, Kris's phone was turned on, and a wrong passcode was put in a whole bunch of times. So it obviously wasn't her that had turned her phone on and was trying to get into it, because after this they never got into her phone again, despite it being turned on and off a whole bunch of times, but they couldn't actually unlock the phone. And the last time the phone was turned on was the 11th of April at 10:51 a.m. and then it was turned off about an hour later. So as I mentioned, Lisanne's camera was also found in the backpack, and when police went through that, there was a whole bunch of photos on it. So there was normal ones like from that day and them exploring the city. So I guess I forgot to record myself saying this, but there were 90 photos found on the camera that were taken on the 8th of April between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. They were flash photos, and one of these photos was taken every 2 minutes for that time period, and yeah. So no one was able to properly determine what these photos were for, why they were taken, or what was the meaning behind them. Some people said that maybe they were trying to like light their way and see where they were going by using the flash photography, but a lot of people were like, no, that's not true, because you know when you take a photo in the dark and then you kind of like can't really see after, and it takes a while for your eyes to like gather themselves and like know what's happening and kind of adjust themselves again. So if it's like pitch black, a lot of people are like, well, they wouldn't have been taking it to be able to see, because the light would have just blinded them anyway and they wouldn't have been able to see where they were going. It wouldn't have helped them at all. And then some people said that maybe they were taking it to scare off things. Maybe there was like animals in the jungle and they were trying to scare off these animals, or maybe another theory is that they were trying to alert someone that they were there, like a search team or something, and be like, hey, we're here, and then maybe someone will see the flash and then come and help them. And then another theory of these photos is that maybe they took them for a reason. Someone said that there was some kind of like method to the photos. So for example, I don't actually know what the exact method is, but for example, they take like one close-up one and then 3 facing up and then 1 far away one, you know what I mean? Like there was some, and then they would take those 5 photos, and then for the next set of 5 photos they would take it like a close-up one, 3 up, and then 1 far away one kind of thing. They took them in a sequence. So I don't remember exactly who said it. It was some kind of expert, and they said that it was some kind of sequence, and he doesn't know what the sequence is for, or what the photos mean, or why they took photos of these specific things, but maybe the girls were taking these photos specifically to try and help whoever found them or whoever found their backpacks. I think out of all these photos, there was one photo of Kris, and I don't remember if it was the back of her head or the side of her head. I read somewhere that it was the back of her head, but they also said that her injury was in her temple, and I'm like, how could you have seen that in that photo of the back of her head? I'm not sure, but apparently you can see that she has like an injury to her temple or something in one of the photos. So after the backpack was found, another search took place, but this time, because as I mentioned, the backpack was found ages away from where they were hiking, so they had a search where the backpack was, and they did find a few more things. They found Kris's shorts, which weirdly enough, they were like folded up neatly on the top of a rock. 2 months later, after they found the backpack, they also found a boot, and the boot had a foot in it, like a whole person's foot in it, and a sock on the foot. And then also very close to the boot there was a pelvic bone that was found. And the boot thing, it kind of sounds weird, right? Like when I first saw it, I was like, okay, that's weird, something definitely happened to her and someone's done this and someone's hurt them. But actually it's apparently like a really common thing. Well, some people think it's a really common thing, like really, really common and not weird at all. And then some people also say like it's weird, but I'm pretty sure it's like common, like it's not that weird of a thing for her foot to be detached from her body. So the pelvic bone I can't say is normal, but to make it even more bizarre, 33 more bones of Lisanne and Kris's were found in the same sort of area, but because of like translation differences, because it had to be translated into 3 different languages, it can't be determined for sure whether or not they were found close together in the same area or if they were found like kilometers apart. But most of the sources I read said that they were found kilometers apart, so that's what I'm going to say. They were found like quite a far distance from each other. Each of the bones was spaced quite far away from the other, and there were 33 of them found. 28 of these bones were from Lisanne's left foot, and the pelvic bone, by the way, was Kris's. What's bizarre is Lisanne's bones all had like a bit of flesh still attached to them, but Kris's didn't, and they had actually been bleached. I'm gonna put a link down below for the video if you want to see it. It has like the bones and like the foot in the video. Obviously I don't want to put it on here because I know some people are a little bit squeamish about that kind of stuff because it's gross, like it's a human foot that is detached from a body. It's disgusting. But for those of you who do want to see it, I'm going to link it down below, a video where you can see it. The bones also were not actually found by police. They were found by indigenous people. The weather was deemed too bad to search, so they had one Panamanian search team looking. They only searched for 3 days, and then they let the Indigenous people have a look. The special prosecutor deputized the Indigenous people, I think, so that they could like be in on the case and look for the remains. So that is why the Indigenous people were the ones who actually found the bones. So their bones were found in a very sparsely populated area. There wasn't a lot of people, and it kind of doesn't really make any sense how the girls got there. It's literally an entire day's trip from where they started the hike to where their bones were found. And it's like, how did these girls get there? They wouldn't have known where they were going. They weren't experienced. They didn't know the area. And on top of that, they didn't have any food and they didn't have any water. They had like 1 bottle of water. So it just makes no sense how they would have made this entire trip to get to where their bones were. No one has any idea how that happened. So yeah, as creepy and as gruesome as that was, it did kind of help because it determined that at least one of the girls was deceased. And it also did bring up like a lot of questions because it is really weird, like where are the rest of the remains and how did they get there? Like the average adult human has something like 206 bones, I read, and there were literally 28 of Lisanne's bones found. Where are the rest of them? Everything relating to the bones is just bizarre. The fact that Kris's bones were bleached is probably the weirdest part of it all. There were bones that were found from different cases and they were much older than Kris's bones and they hadn't been bleached. So it doesn't make sense to try and explain it as it happened because of the elements, because Lisanne's bones weren't bleached, and there was another case of an American tourist who also got lost in the jungle. They found her entire skeletal remains, none of which had been bleached, and they found the skeletal remains 2 years after this person went missing. There was also no sign of animal scavenging on the bones as well. So the bones were apparently bleached by phosphorus or lime, which you can't actually find in local soil. I actually read an expert's opinion on this, and they said that they think this might have something to do with like a Mexican cartel, because bone bleaching is something that they do. They use lime to speed up the decaying process to get rid of any evidence that they had done anything to these people. A few experts say that there actually was an attacker in this situation, and that is why some of the bones were bleached, because it doesn't really make any sense otherwise for the bones to be bleached and like only a few specific bones to be bleached. And basically the attacker used this to kind of get rid of any of the evidence and make the decaying process a lot quicker. But it just doesn't make sense that like it must have been like, if there is an attacker in the situation, it's like something must have happened to Kris and then not happened to Lisanne, because Lisanne's bones were all had tissue on them and weren't bleached, but Kris's bones were. The police actually refused to give out the autopsy of the girls or the reports on their bones, and some people believe the reason that they don't give them out is because of the whole Mexican cartel thing. So that's pretty much all of the information about the bones. They are really bizarre. The bones are just like the most bizarre thing of the case. But the first superior who was assigned to this case actually traveled via helicopter to Panama City and then overland for another 4 hours to get to where the bones were found. But on her way back from Panama, she was immediately hospitalized for dehydration, which apparently is not uncommon in the jungle terrain where they were. So I don't know if that kind of gives you some kind of insight as to what the conditions were like and how crazy it is that these girls survived for so long, if they did survive for that long, because they were turning their phones on and off and someone got into the phone and just, it's like, it's a mess. Like, it's crazy. If they did manage to survive for as long as their phones were turning on for, how? Like, how did they do that? How did they get that far as well? For so, and like live for so long when they had no food and they had 1 bottle of water. It just doesn't make sense. So anyway, the investigation begins and they look into the host family and notice that all of the girls' stuff is there, so obviously they were planning on coming back. The rooms they were staying in were investigated by the National Civil Protection Agency, which was kind of botched because they were not the ones who were meant to do this. It was actually the criminology technicians that were meant to be looking into this, so it was kind of like a messed up situation from the start. A lot of people weren't happy about it. So that is basically most of the information. But honestly, based on everything, I think that they just passed away from the elements, that it just got too much, because honestly, from everything that I've read, it is so likely they had 1 bottle of water and no food. It was actually raining from the camera shots. You can see that it was raining the night they disappeared. And a lot of people said that the trails were really easy to follow, right? But on the particular one they went to, there comes this place where there's like a trail and they say not to go on it. Like, it's not a trail, but it actually is a trail, but only Indigenous people go on it. I don't know if that makes sense. It's really confusing, but there's like a secret trail that tourists shouldn't go on, basically, especially not in the conditions that they were in at night time during rainfall. Even the people that say that these trails are really well marked and really hard to get lost on, those same people say that if you leave the track like at all, it is so easy to get lost. It's jungle, you can't find your way back, everything looks the same. So if you leave that trail even for a little bit to just go and look at something, it's really easy to get lost. So anyway, this little trail that I was talking about, only Indigenous people take this trail, and even then they only take it when it is absolutely necessary. Not even the Indigenous people like taking this trail. It is crazy, especially in the rain. So if the girls for some reason did go on this trail, it is so more than likely that something did happen to them which led to their death. Another weird fact is, from the camera, they were able to determine a spot that they were in. So there's this thing called monkey bridge, and a monkey bridge is basically like these 2 ropes, right, where you put your hands on, and then a little bit lower there's another rope where you wrap your feet around and kind of like pull yourself like across these ropes to get across something, like if there's a stream, because there was a whole bunch of streams in this jungle. So from the cameras they found this little marking, and they went into the jungle, onto the trail, they found this marking and found that there was a monkey bridge right there. So it is also possible that maybe someone fell off and died that way. So a lot of people, including me, think that Kris died first and Lisanne stayed alive for a little bit longer, basically because someone logged into her phone and couldn't get the passcode in, but both phones were found in the bag. So it's likely that she passed away and then Lisanne tried to get into her phone after she had already passed away and, you know, use her phone, because Lisanne's had died, to try and get some signal, but she didn't have the passcode, so she couldn't get into it. And then that's why both phones were found in the backpack. It could also be why the photo sequences were taken. In my opinion, I think that's pretty likely, that maybe her friend died and she didn't want to make the same mistake, so she was kind of using the camera as a guide or to see what happened. I have no idea. Honestly, the photos are like baffling to me, and even though I think this is the most likely scenario, I do find the bone bleaching really weird. I mean, maybe someone found the bones and was using them to practice bone bleaching. I have no idea. So that's what I definitely think happened. I think that Kris passed away first and Lisanne was still alive, because there was no evidence that Lisanne was injured. I do just find some things weird, obviously, but I just feel like this is the most likely scenario. I feel like the most bizarre thing of this whole case is just like, why? Like, why were they there? Why did they decide to go on this hike the day before they had already planned to go with their tour guide? And how did they end up, how did their bones end up where they were from where they started their hike? How did they survive for so long with 1 bottle of water and no food? I don't know how long a person can last without food or water, but 10+ days seems like a very long time to be able to survive without any of that. And why didn't they follow the dog back? Like, when the dog left, the dog managed to get home, so why didn't they follow the dog back if they were in trouble or if they were lost? Why didn't they go with him? And why did they go on such a dangerous path? Why didn't they stick to the normal trail? Why did they have to go off into the part that was dangerous despite the fact that it was raining? So many questions. But let me know what you guys think. Let me know what your theory is, if you think they died because of the elements or if you think that there was someone involved. I would love to hear, and I would also love for you to suggest cases down below that you would like me to cover in my future Unsolved Mystery videos. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, please make sure to give it a thumbs up for me. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that you can see more of these videos and also my other videos. I do some great beauty videos too. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you next time. Bye!